Hey guys, it's Mike here, and over the course of my time on YouTube, I have consistently been asked a single question which has to do with Gohan, my favorite character in the story, something that I have often wondered and thought about ever since the Cell Saga and the Buu Saga of Dragon Ball Z. That would have to be, what if Gohan never stopped training after the Cell Saga, going up to the Buu Saga, and even further beyond? Well, in this video, I'm going to be breaking that down because it is something that, especially given the modern continuity of Dragon Ball with Super, for instance, many people think that, there's a very large range of power this character could have achieved. But what exactly would it have been given the original continuity and then moving forward? Well, let me get into that right now, beginning with just how much of a beast that Gohan was, no pun intended, or maybe there is, in the Cell Saga. Now, we saw at that point in time, Gohan, well, he had trained a good amount. I'm going to be getting into that training more in depth shortly with his father, Goku. During that time, he became a mastered Super Saiyan, but then he went even further beyond and became a Super Saiyan 2, snapping after the cracking of Android 16's skull and robotic brain on the ground in front of Cell, the random lizard bug man, as he's come to be called on this channel recently, the perfect villain, in fact. You can see in the top right corner me discussing that. And then he achieved such an insane level of power, he was able to take Cell's children, who were less than 5 years old at this point in time, and proceed to splatter them all over the ground. When no one at the time was able to really defeat a single one of them, he beat all of them, including an extra one in the anime version of the events. But it went even further than that, because you see, shortly after this point, Cell showed off his horrible, true power, as he said. "Allow me to show you how terrifying my true power really is." In which he scared everybody. Even Goku was shocked by just how incredibly powerful this perfect lizard bug man was. But guess what? Gohan wasn't impressed. He let him get punched right in the face, just like Vegeta let Semi-Perfect Cell punch him in the face, and took next to no damage, parried his blast, his punch, hit him right in the stomach, and then uppercut him. Gohan was just stomping him easily. Even when Cell fired a full power Kamehameha, Gohan just nonchalantly, without even raising his hands, getting the pose, charged up his own attack, fired it with barely any distance in between, and took Cell down with that. This would keep going because Gohan would eventually overpower and kill Cell at the end of this arc when he, vaporized him after he came back as Super Perfect Cell. So with regard to that, you could certainly make the argument that Gohan was always far more powerful than the power we see of Cell. I went too much further beyond with this, so we'll see it right here. And the thing is that, remember, when Gohan killed Cell right here, well, as he himself had said, his power was basically cut in half after he took the damage from Vegeta. His ki had gone way down. In some translations, it was half or even less than that. But you can argue that much of that also came down to the fact that Gohan had his mind not ready and willing at the time to go all out. So either way, I've always said that Gohan would be even stronger than Super Perfect Cell, which is a gigantic boost. Because remember, not only did Gohan at this point get a increase with the Super Saiyan 2, which you can argue is 2 times the mastered Super Saiyan form, whatever multiplier you want to give that to, that's a whole other can of worms or can of bugs like Cell, but not just that, he also got his hidden potential unlocked, something which becomes increasingly more relevant to this video as it goes on. So 7 years later, the Buu Saga comes about, and we see Gohan's power on display when he becomes a Super Saiyan 2 again in front of Kibito. Maybe the first time, unless you want to throw the BoJack movie in there, since he fought Cell, that he achieved this form yet again. Now, when he does, what happens? Vegeta here basically mocks his power. He says, he's not even close to the level he was when he fought Cell. he's taken peacetime for granted and slacked off on his training. That's true. Gohan barely, if at all, trained up until the point to where he started to begin his training again with Goten and Videl leading into this tournament. He had assumed that he didn't need to because he was so powerful. He took peacetime for granted, like Vegeta said. Vegeta even told him earlier in the story to not let peace become his greatest enemy, essentially, to continue to stay strong just in case, which Gohan, well, he has a tendency of never doing that, aside from in one storyline, which I'll get into soon. Now, a lot of people wonder just how much weaker Gohan really got. I have a video on my channel, again, in the top right corner, which discusses how much weaker he got. So for me, I would say that Gohan actually probably got somewhere maybe in the vicinity of like 20% weaker than his full power when he fought against Super Perfect Cell. After all, he was able to fight against Deborah, who is said by Goku to be stronger than Cell. And I would say Super Perfect Cell, based on a number of videos you could see on my channel. I have a number of them, not going to link them all, but I even did a video about Deborah versus Cell, Gohan versus Cell at this point in the story, and so on. So check those out. I don't know if I'll link them, but either way, instead of this happening, what if Gohan kept training from this point? Just how much stronger would he be here? Well, there is one thing that we have in the Buu Saga that gives us kind of a suggestion. And that would come down to what we see with Gohan right here, which is when Gohan has his hidden power, his latent potential unlocked by the Elder Supreme Kai, Rao Kaioshin, and what happens? His power is so immense that he shocks everyone, including Goku, who we'd seen his power before, and we see that, well, he is able to dominate other characters. Like, for instance, we see that he shows up and is able to just start wrecking Super Buu. Now, Super Buu at this point, he's stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku. He's stronger than Gotenks, who was already stronger than Goku as a Super Saiyan, became even stronger as a Super Saiyan 3 after training in the Time Chamber. And he's able to just utterly wreck this guy, placing him above multiple fusions in this case, in terms of the fusion of Evil Buu / Kid Buu and Fat Buu, and Gotenks. So that is a gigantic boost, going from weaker than Fat Buu and Goku to vastly more powerful than every other character who had been introduced at this point in the story. Of course, a lot of people argue to this very day that Goku was still stronger than Gohan, especially because that one line in the Kid Buu fight, but either way, we saw just how strong Goku was on display here. So the argument is, well, would Goku have been, or Gohan in this case, this strong if he continued to train from the Cell Saga? After all, Gohan already had his potential unlocked here, basically through training and unlocking it through the Rage Boost and Super Saiyan 2, and he had it unlocked again here. So he would have trained for 7 years on top of this, gone through puberty, gotten much taller, and, everything that comes along with that. And not just that, but additionally, he would have, well, had an even better body in terms of training that'd be more capable of handling whatever power he had. So some people could argue he might even be stronger in this. Some people might throw in Super's continuity and be like, oh, well, he would be so beastly. He might as well be Gohan Beast at this point in time. But I kind of have a feeling that that wouldn't necessarily be the case. And why is that? Well, let's get into that right now. Because the thing is that with regard to this, there is one little caveat with Gohan's power and potential being unlocked by the Elder Supreme Kai, which is the fact that when we get a description of Elder Kaioshin's explanation of how this works after the Z-Sword breaks, after Gohan's Z-Sword training, what does he say? He says that his ability is to draw out the powers and the hidden abilities of a fighter far beyond their limits. Now, what does this mean? Well, like he says, it's beyond their limits. Goku says that he does, in fact, know what this power is. He's seen it before, and the other translation from Visit's like, yeah, I've seen that like every day, because he had seen it from Kami, Guru, the Grand Elder on Namek. And not just that, but we'd already seen this earlier in the story too with Vegeta. We could see it right here, for instance. Vegeta becomes Majin Vegeta. And what happens? After Babidi puts him under the spell, he then says that he's going to release his hidden powers to overcome his limits. Now, this isn't necessarily the same thing. It's actually, the Elder Kai's is the better version of this, the better version of Guru's. Gohan even had his potential unlocked by Guru, but, of course, it continued to go up and up from there. However, with Gohan, as we see in this story, it isn't quite the same thing, because with regard to that, it could be argued that this not only originally in the original continuity took Gohan's power and released it dormantly, but released it to such a degree that he would never even get stronger from that. That's like the maximum power he could ever achieve. Like, let's go forward a little bit. For instance, when Gohan is fighting against Buu, Gohan gets beaten down and Dende rushes in to heal him. Now what happens? He gets healed, but then Buu says, wait, you're healed? Well, you're only back to your former ineptitude. You didn't get any stronger, just prolonging the inevitable. So why didn't Gohan get stronger? He didn't get a Zenkai boost? He didn't unleash even more power and potential within him? Isn't that kind of strange, don't you think? Well, maybe it has to do again with what Toriyama really intended for Ultimate Gohan to be here. This is as powerful as he could ever become. When Grand Kai, the Elder Supreme Kai, the Kaioshin Grand, basically at that point in time, the Grand Slam of the Kais, well, he says it goes beyond the limits. And so that's might be, in fact, what it is. Gohan never could have gotten stronger from here. Or perhaps it just is Gohan at this point in time. He got healed, but Gohan still only has a 18-year-old body. Toriyama wrote 16 at the start of the arc, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. But either way, he's only 18. But by the time we see in Super, for instance, if you want to include that, he is in his 20s, closer to 30 than he was to 18 at the time. So with that being said, you could argue that he still could potentially get stronger. Plus, here's another thing worth noting. It's arguable that because of what happened with it going beyond his limits, Gohan never would have been able to train up to this level. You could argue he definitely wouldn't have been able to achieve Ultimate because, after all, he in fact wouldn't have had this ritual that essentially replaced Super Saiyan. If we look at, for instance, the dialogue when Gohan uses his Ultimate, which I'll go forward to right now, go even further beyond the speed in order to find that, well, what is it said? When he achieves his ultimate state, the Elder Kai basically explains it to him like it's a replacement for the other forms of Super Saiyan, like right here. How do I turn into that Ultimate Warrior? You turn into a super whatever, fired up just like that. So just like turning into a Super Saiyan, all right, I can do that. Now in the Japanese, it might say also that you throw in a little kya right there, which is kind of like when they yell and unleash their power, which we see the characters do a lot. So it's made to seem like this is a replacement for Super Saiyan, that he no longer needs to become one to get his power. And even the Elder Supreme Kai says right here, transforming isn't everything. That's super whatever, it's just showbiz. Which seems to lend to the idea that Toriyama wanted to get rid of forms at this point in time and kind of phase them out. Even Goku at the very end of the story, what happens? Well, he's fighting Kid Buu in just his base. So the idea seemed to be that Toriyama wanted to move away from forms, and then GT and Super happened. That wasn't exactly happening, now was it? But either way, you can definitely make the argument Gohan wouldn't have been able to do this, and maybe never would have been able to get this strong training in general because it went beyond the normal limits of anyone, including himself. With that being said, maybe there's a very slight side or against that, which you can get into right here, which is when Gohan is getting his power unleashed by the Elder Supreme Kai. And he says, shouldn't you be done already? And Supreme Kai says, if it's not done yet, then you must have had a lot of latent potential left. Gohan gets mad, he powers up, and he starts to unleash a lot of power. Goku and everyone's shocked by the power. So you could already argue, even before they're done, he's already stronger than Goku now because of his reaction. But when he sits down, Goku just is shocked. He says right here, hidden abilities is about power that you have just that was hidden away, right? Wow, how much hidden power does Gohan have? So maybe the Beyond the Limits is just also kind of like a turn of phrase, but it does seem to still be an even greater unlock than anything else, if only because the fact that Gohan doesn't need to transform anymore to achieve it. But still, that is a major point against it. Because if Gohan doesn't need to transform, until Super when he does, if Gohan doesn't need to transform anymore, but he would not be able to do this normally, well, how strong could he get? Would Gohan just be a really far more powerful adult Super Saiyan 2 by the time of the Buu Saga? Or would he achieve another form beyond that, just like Goku did? Would Gohan be so powerful that he would achieve not only something just like, or perhaps the exact same form as Super Saiyan 3 here, but an even far more powerful version of it than what Goku has, and maybe even master it altogether? Is that a possibility? Because Gohan's power was so great, it took 7 years for Goku and Vegeta just to surpass him a little bit in their base and Super Saiyan forms up until 3. After all, look at this. When Goku first becomes a Super Saiyan 2 against Vegeta, it is only now that Vegeta makes the point of saying that Goku is stronger than Gohan when he fought Cell. If Goku was already stronger as a Super Saiyan, then this would have been pointed out. But no, it's only once he becomes a Super Saiyan 2 that this is said. It's only once Vegeta is going full power and fighting against Buu that Piccolo makes note that Vegeta is stronger than Gohan when he fought Cell. So it took 7 years of afterlife training and 7 years of training hellishly in the gravity chamber for Vegeta to surpass Gohan and for Goku to do the same. So with that being said, that shows just how massively powerful Gohan's potential was, how far ahead of them he was, and no doubt how far ahead of them he would have stayed. So it's possible that with all the added training, Gohan would be even stronger than Goku by a gigantic leap, maybe the exact same amount or maybe even more. I mean, that's 7 years of training, right? And he would have had a form like Super Saiyan 3 that would take him even further beyond what Goku is capable of. However, there is one big aside against this, because there actually is a Gohan that never stopped training and trained on his own, and that would have to be Future Gohan. Future Gohan trained on his own ever since he was a kid after the fight against the androids when they killed everyone, and yet, despite all of that, in his own words, he wanted to be as strong as his dad when he passed away, but it's not as easy as it seems. It's arguable that Future Gohan in the manga was never as strong as Goku when he died after being on Yardrat, and maybe a little bit of extra training. After all, Goku didn't know about the androids coming, so he wouldn't have even been as strong as he was when he fought against maybe Android 19 with the heart virus, but before he went to the time chamber. Which goes to show you that Gohan, he wasn't even on the level of one android when he fights in the manga. 17 didn't even use half his power last time they fought, and when he goes full power, Gohan is cooked. He has no chance whatsoever. Even in the anime version, he loses to both the androids at the same time. This is Gohan in his 20s, like basically around the same age as he is right here. And this is a Gohan who never stopped training. Now, why is that? Well, I think the biggest reason is because he trained on his own. He had to figure out Super Saiyan on his own. He had to be able to teach himself how to train when he didn't have Goku or Piccolo there. But Gohan's biggest boost always came through a combination of training with somebody else and through rage. When Gohan became a Super Saiyan, he trained with Goku, who showed him literally how to do it and then how to master it. they emerged with the highest boost that either of them had seen at that point in the story in terms of, well, just overall strength. Goku got giant Zenkais on Namek, so did Gohan, but in terms of like just the straight up power level, let's say at this point in time, Goku got much stronger training with Gohan than he would have gotten training with anyone else or on his own in the time chamber, and Gohan surpassed him during that point in time as well. Even before he unlocked his hidden potential, became a Super Saiyan, Goku was the best one when it came to drawing even more of it out. So Gohan being left to his own devices without training with anyone for 7 years might not have even gotten a significant amount stronger. It's still possible that because Gohan was not trained the same way that Goku was with a dead body, where he was not being able to be coached by King Kai, for instance, the whole time, where he might not have even thought to achieve another form, like Goku had the entire time was pushing him to do so with different forms, then he might have never actually gotten another form. He might have never actually become that strong compared to how he is when he is wrecking Super Buu in the manga later on in the anime as, well, Ultimate Gohan. So you can argue that there's a chance that Gohan wouldn't have even gotten a massive amount stronger by the time of the Buu Saga, as weird as that sounds, especially in the modern continuity of Dragon Ball Super. In Super, Gohan barely trains, and then he gets angry, and then he surpasses Ultra Instinct and everybody else like that with God and Angel training and stuff like that. Gohan trained a little bit with Piccolo, trained for about a day, and then he was able to punch Super Saiyan Blue Goku into using Kaioken. He was able to defeat, or at least stalemate, a fusion of Kefura in the Tournament of Power, and yet in the future Trunks storyline, the future and original Gohan never got this strong. He was weaker than Goku after Yardrat. He could have even arguably been surpassed by his father during those years, even though he had so much more potential. The only way I could see this not necessarily happening is if Gohan trained with the one character that he trained with usually other than Goku and very shortly Krillin with the image training in the start of the Namek and Frieza saga, which is Piccolo. I don't know why Piccolo didn't actually train Gohan during those 7 years either. Like, it's something that I'm probably going to do a whole video about, because it is weird when you think about that Piccolo always tried to make sure that Gohan stayed his best, and yet he just kind of didn't help him for 7 years. Piccolo was shown training, especially before this tournament, and yet he didn't help to train Gohan. Kind of strange when you think about it. A little bit sus, right? No cap. So, with that being said, just how strong would Gohan have truly become when everything came down to it? Well, let me get into that right now in my conclusion. So with regard to all of that, well, Gohan, I think he would have been much stronger than he was when he fought against Cell. Based upon Gohan's increase in power, if he diligently trained, if he had help from, let's say, Piccolo, for instance, I think he definitely would have been stronger than his father and Vegeta by the end of the time skip. If he just trained on his own, he didn't really know what he was doing, there's a chance that maybe Goku would have surpassed him during the afterlife. I don't know that Vegeta ever would have, because of the fact that he still needs the Majin boost just to be able to match up to Goku. But either way, the fact of the matter is that I don't know that he would necessarily be as strong as Ultimate Gohan. There are arguments you can make that maybe he would, because his body would even be more prepared than it was to use that power, than it was, for instance, after he had used the Z-Sword training, which made him stronger. But nonetheless, he wouldn't have had the ability to tap in all of his power in basically just his base form before that was kind of retconned later on to be another transformation above 2 for him. And not just that, but maybe he would have achieved something like Super Saiyan 3, but being Gohan, who's much like Trunks in the sense of he doesn't have as much fighting sense and understanding of these things as Goku and even Vegeta, he might have given in and succumbed to the stamina weakness like Goku went on to do. He might have not been able to output his energy as much as if he had trained with Goku or Piccolo during that time. So I think there's a strong argument to be that he still would have been the most powerful fighter in the Buu Saga, for sure, but would he have been as strong as Ultimate Gohan? I'm not too sure, especially given the original version of the continuity where it seemed like he wouldn't have been as strong, because the fact is, well, you know, it's arguable that Supreme Kai made him as strong as he ever could have possibly become, until, of course, later on he got older, his potential kept growing, and I have yet another video you guys can see in the cards in the top right and down below the description, as well as on my channel, about how Gohan's hidden potential really works. So check that out for more information. That being said, thanks for watching, and make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.